All right, before we get going in the review, don't forget to get your Space Dice Tower shirt right now. These are the 2024 shirts, and we are available right now on the merch store with those. We've already got quite a few orders in already. Get your hoodie and your shirt right now.
All right, so this hot mess is Great Western Trail, New Zealand. Now, we are doing the reviews lately in media res. Now, by in media res, I mean at the end of the game. This is the end result of a two-player game. Now, a couple of things I want to point out here. That are not going to look like a teach video. Because again, if you want a teach video, there are people who do fantastic jobs at that, but I'm going to give you an overview of how to play, especially if you're familiar with the original. But even if you're not, I'll give you an overview of how to play. Now, you will have a player board here. Now, on this player board, all of these things are going to be covered, and during the game, you're going to be able to take things off of this board to put them on the main board to make your player actions better, including adding workers here in these different spots. You got shepherds, you got craftsmen, you've got sailors, and you've got the shearers. Ed Sheeran. Essentially what you're going to be doing though, you're going to be moving along this trail, hence the reason it's called Great Western Trail. So you're going to move along the trail and stop at buildings. Now if you stop at a building that you own, say case in point the red player stops at the red building, you can take the action of the building. This one would be discard 2 of the same cards to sell them for their wool value. Now wool we will come back to in just a minute because it is different than the original, but I really like this update. However, if there's a neutral tile, one of these gray borders, everybody can use that benefit. Now, let's just say the red player stops on a blue building. That is not going to let you do the action. You're going to have to take an auxiliary action instead. Also, when you cross by these places that have hands on them, based on the player count, you're going to have to pay a certain number of money. Now, at this point, this person has upgraded their player count or their hand amount based on this trail here. But normally it would be in a two-player game, 1 for black hands, 2 for green hands. However, if you pass up this Pathfinder trail, there's a point where you can either choose to get an extra movement space or you can choose to say, hey, I'm not paying anybody anymore, which is pretty great. So you're going to move along the trail, take the actions of the board. Now, once you get up here to Wellington is Peter Jackson said, we've got the Weather Workshop here in Wellington. While they're building Middle-earth amazing replicas, they're also selling sheep. So you're going to sell your sheep up here onto this board. Now, forget this board for a minute because that is kind of like a Rails to the North expansion in the main game. But this main area here is where you're going to be selling your sheep to. Now, let's just say you sell a hand of sheep, which would be your hand of cards based on the amount in the top left. So let's say you have a 2, a 1, a 3, and a 5. So that'd be 2 plus 1 is 3 plus whatever I said. 5 is 8 plus 1 is 9. So you have 9 to sell. So you can then take a disc off your board matching the shoulders. Now white can go anywhere, but black has to go on black up to that limit. So 9 would be here. Now, if you were to use the other board, the second board here, which is, it is mandatory, you kind of have to do it. It's not an expansion, but it feels like an expansion. You would move your ships along during the game, and then you would be able to place harbors out to these different islands. And once you have a harbor on the island, you can also deliver there. So you could deliver here at 5, here at 7, here at, well, these are available always, but 13, 9, and 5. You can only deliver to a place one time. Now, that is the delivering at Wellington. However, this game adds shearing sheep because sheep are delicious. They're mutton. MLT, a nice MLT. Love it. You can do mutton, right? Or you can do wool. And the way you do wool is certain action spaces are going to allow you to shear your sheep, which takes a second value, which would be this value here. Now, notice this sheep is actually less useful for meat, but more useful for wool. You'll do the same thing. You'll reveal those cards, you'll count the amount, you'll count them and then get the total in money to you, and then you will put a disc out there. Some of them require wool, so you could not put mutton here, but you could put wool here. Some of them are available for anything, and you can just deliver those onto those boards based on where you have harbors and also based on these spaces here. So that is a second way you can sell sheep, and you can sell sheep in the middle of a round. Normally in the old game, you'd have to go all the way to Kansas City, sell your cattle, but now you can sell it based on this action space. So you can actually sell sheep a couple times, and at the end of your turn, you're always drawing up to your hand limit, which can change based on your player board. So therefore, you can make more money in this game a lot easier based on that. Now, however, it does say in most places you have to sell the amount of wool based on the amount of shearers you have. So if you only have 2 shearers, you can only sell 2 wool. But same thing with the seafarer. Most of the spaces that allow you to move your ship allow you to move up to the amount of workers you have here. It just kind of makes sense. Same thing with the shepherds. The shepherds and the craftsmen are pretty much the same from the original game. Based on the amount of shepherds you have, you can buy better sheep down here at the auction or the sheep market, I guess. And then based on the craftsman, you can build buildings that you have a personal supply of based on the amount of workers you have. Now, there is an upgrade rule to it, which allows you to take, for instance, this is a 3. Let's say I wanted to build a 9 here. Well, if I had 5 workers, 6 workers, well, you can't have that, so let's do that math again. Let's say I have a 3 here, and I want to build a level 8 building. So this is a 2. Let's say I want to build a 5. I would need 3 more workers to take the difference between. So you don't have to have 8 workers because you can't have 8 workers or 6 workers or whatever it is. You do the difference. So it helps you upgrade your buildings each time. The game will play until this disc kicks off here, and that will happen every time somebody goes to Wellington. They'll put these new tiles out here on the board. Workers will go here, and then upgrade tiles, including the jokers, which are wild workers, will go down here, which will further push the timer of the game off the board. Once this hits the end of the board, the person who kicks it off the board gains 5 points, and then the player who did not finish will get a turn or play yours. So if you end the game, everybody else will get equal turns, and then you will, or not equal turns, I shouldn't say, everyone else will get another turn, and then you will count points. Points are based on certain things like goal cards, certain things like the actual cattle in your, see, there I go again, the actual sheep in your deck. The fact that if you collected certain things on your player board, points up here. It is a point salad-y game, even though I've never heard of a mutton salad, which would be delicious probably. Now, at the end of the day, this also adds a whole level of bonus cards. So you've got things like birds, which are for this track. This track essentially restricts you from being able to build on certain places, but it is also worth points at the end of the game. The higher you go, the more points you get. You also have cards that just give you money. So instead of the old game where you'd have cattle and then also gold cards and you'd play those when they happen, you now have sheepdogs, and then you have little fairies, and then you have ships, and you have forts and all that sort of stuff, which allow you to do certain actions during the game. They essentially let you do actions of the main board during the game when they come into your hand. So the deck building is a little bit more intense in this game. I would say this is a much more heavy version of Great Western Trail because it has a whole lot of stuff added in. But that is how you play. You'll play until the end there, like I said, and then the person with the most points wins the game.
All right, let's take a look at how this game plays. Now, 3 things we look at. We look at art direction, and gameplay. Now, as you know, because I've done the review here many, many years ago, Great Western Trail was one of my favorite games, even with the old art, the 3 people staring at you like this. I love this game. We had it like 8 years ago, and I've always liked this game. It was one of the games featured in my reviews in the old style where I do a crazy intro where I look in the fridge and then show you a real cattle. But today we're taking a look at Great Western Trail, New Zealand. Now, what's different about this game? First of all, the art is the same of the new Eggert Spiel versions of these. They look really, really good on the table. The boards themselves have actual inlays for your disc to go, so things can't just slide all over the place, which would be the case in the original edition. So really, it's a Euro game, so you're bound by Euro art, but it looks really good. Like, it's a good looking game. All of the characters look great. The sheep look really good. And then the board itself looks really great, right? Now, art direction. How does the game influence how you play? Well, the art of the game, every symbol is explained, save, I think, 1. And that symbol is pretty easily understood based on what everything else does in the game. So everything is explained on the back of the little index book or throughout the rule book itself. So everything makes sense. You know, a green arrow means you get this. A red arrow means you pay this. -3, although to me that should mean discount, means you pay a $3 surcharge on top of whatever you have to pay, right? So on looking at the game and figuring it out, like, everything seems to flow really well. It makes sense. Like, this does this. You get that, right? As far as gameplay, now it's funny, when I first started playing this, I thought, man, I don't like this as much as the original. And then when I played it more and continued to play it, I actually think this is my favorite version, albeit I like the West, the American West, better than New Zealand, and I like cattle better than sheep. So there is that. But the board at the top that feels kind of like an expansion. Like, if you were to tell me, hey, you can play this game without the board at the top, I would totally understand that. You just have a wider range of deliveries you could do in the main board top. But the shipping is kind of cool. Like, the whole idea of, well, I can move my ship for this action. I can move here and I can get this harbor and that will give me points. After finishing the game and playing it through quite a few times, like, I really like that top part and I wouldn't change that. However, like I said, the theme of this one to me is not as cool as the American West, but I like what they've done with the whole shipping board. I think that's actually a cool expansion, add-on, whatever you want to call it, but I really like that. Now, would I rather you play it without that? No, I think now finally I've come to settle down and be like, no, I think the top board with the whole shipping is really cool. The idea of being able to power up your shipping so you can move it further and then get all the way to those far harbors so you can get your points. I like that a lot. So what it adds to the original game are a couple wrinkles. The thing I like the most that it adds over the original is the fact that you can sell wool. You can sell wool mid-game instead of just having to go all the way to Wellington and then sell your sheep, right? No, you can sell your sheep and then sell your sheep again. Like, to me, that is such a cool little wrinkle. And it makes sense thematically. Sheep are not just sold for meat. They're sold for cotton, and they're also sold for meat. Because, I mean, there's nothing greater than a good lamb chop with a little mint jelly. But at the end of the day, will I play this one over the original? Gameplay-wise, yes, I will. Theme-wise, I like the American West better. But maybe there's a future expansion where it takes all the stuff from this one and puts it in the West. I'd love to see that. But at the end of the day, I think this is a solid entry. It's a 7.5 for me. The reason it gets dinged is because, again, the theming, I like the original better, but gameplay-wise, I like this one a smidge better than the original. So never thought I'd say that when I first pulled it out and I was looking at the rules like, oh my gosh, what in the world? Did I think I would say that? But I think that is where I'm landing right now today. So that is Great Western Trail, New Zealand. I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.